Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Voxcaster podcast. It is another Saturday, and as we have let you guys know, for the next couple weeks, before we go on a little end-of-year break on our end, we're just going to be covering some generic topics that we want to talk about and have rants about, and things that we've noticed that we just want to get discussions going with people about. And we're just going to be doing more of like that style formula right now. It's just very hard with the holidays to be and time differences like we are here in Canada. So anytime we try to book anything, it's usually people that are in Europe or elsewhere. So we're trying to deal with time differences and holiday breaks and everything happening at once. So we just said, hey, why don't we just do a couple episodes where we just talk about fun topics, let everybody take a break, have less stress on people during the holidays, and then we'll just bring guests back in the new year. So today we're actually going to be talking about a topic that is close to both of our hearts a little bit. And we wanted to go through the age-old discussion of, Age of Sigmar versus 40K. And then I wanted to keep Horus Heresy out of it for a bit.
Yeah.
Because it's just, there's a lot to Horus Heresy. It adds complexity on a whole other level. Which, Kim, you can attest to this. Like, Horus Heresy is perfect for somebody like me. I like very, very complex battles. I like having to think 10, 20 steps ahead with every unit. Like overlapping rules. I like the fact that you need to have a lot of memory. I like all that stuff. So Horus Heresy for me, but it's so complex, especially for newer people.
Way too complex.
Like Kim and I have done a few, like when you get the Horus Heresy book, the one thing that Horus Heresy does better than any other game system, and I'll just quickly say this with the Horus Heresy, is when we got Saturnine, the instruction booklet, it also teaches you how to play, but it does it, it's like dumbed down rules. Like it's literally like, this is how you move, and your first mission is move it across a table. That's it. That's it.
It's like instructions for like, explain it like I'm 5 years old.
But yes. But why I like that is because somebody brand new to the hobby like you, who's like brand new, like you were green, you never played Warhammer at all. Yes, we did have some AOS stuff, so you knew the fundamentals, but imagine you didn't have the AOS stuff. You would have gone into Horus Heresy being like imagine that was your first ever tabletop game. What is movement? No, I know it sounds silly because all of us, like, it just makes sense. There are game systems out there that don't use inches to move.
No, that is very...
Do you know what I'm saying? There are game systems that have certain units, or they have centimeters, or they have, a certain preset stick, and you can move half the stick or the full stick or 2 of the stick or whatever it is. Like, it's preset units like that. So when you see like movement 5, well, what does that mean? 5 what? 5 base sizes, 5 inches, 5 centimeters? Like, and those are big differences in distance, right? So the one thing I will say I like the Horus Heresy really does is the fact that it's those like Saturnine beginning missions and stuff. If you're green and brand new, like you've never touched a tabletop game, I think they do it the best for an intro.
Yeah, well, I think Saturnine realizes that for newcomers, it's almost impossible to like jump right into it without any background information. Like I feel like Saturnine is almost, or like horror, like the Heresy is almost like a game you play when you already have experienced Warhammer and you have a little bit of knowledge. Like you know what things mean, you know what the short forms stand for.
Well, sorry, and I agree with all the points you're saying because I've always said this, and we're going to jump into this when we jump into the other game systems. I've always said Horus Heresy is probably other than maybe the Old World, which again, I haven't looked into too much, but from my understanding, people please comment down below, let me know if I'm wrong, that the Old World is like the complexity of Horus Heresy, but you're playing like a fantasy because there's a lot of like, even like how your models, like how they're positioned on the table, like when you're doing a bird's eye view, your units can move forward, but you have to pivot the whole unit because then enemies can attack from the side and you don't get your shield bonus from the front because your shields are up front. They're not at the side. So little things like that. But those are like very complex rules that somebody starting out, it may deter you because there's too much. You can't settle on one thing and like master it and like, okay, I got it. But that's the one thing with Heresy players like myself who are like really into it is I'm good with memorizing rules very quickly. That's like kind of my strength in the world is my memory's way above average.
It's true.
Like the reason why I'm so good at Warhammer is because I have a semi-eidetic memory. So like when I read a data sheet, I almost memorize it right away. So the problem with facing me in Warhammer is not that I'm a good player. It's that I know your data sheets probably as well as you do across any army. Like
Such
most
a
armies,
benefit.
I've memorized most data sheets. So when it comes to the fact that it's like, okay, I'm facing orcs, for example, bro, I know all your data sheets. I know your movement. I know your attacks. I know your toughness. I know your saves. I know everything. Can you confidently say you know the same thing about every one of my units? And this is why, like, a lot of people, like, I'm not an easy person to play against. Even when I try to be dumb, I've tried gaming when I'm been high or drunk. It didn't help. It made it worse, actually, because then I like hyper focus in on things instead of like being like free flowing. Like I'm able to like hyper focus in on the win, and I'll just demolish you. Not that I've won every game. That's not what I'm saying. Like I've lost my fair share of games. I'm just saying I'm a very hard person to try to counter because I know the limitations of your units almost as well as I know the limitations of my units. Whereas a lot of people, like, they never read other data sheets.
No, well, even in AOS, I've noticed like when we have games, same thing in AOS, you know all of the army's data sheets. So you know how my Gloom hit, you know their regiment abilities, you know their battle traits. And I'm sitting there asking you, like, oh, does Seraphon have shooting? Does Seraphon do
Yeah, no,
this?
it's true. Like,
Because I'm trying to plan out how I'm gonna battle him, and I want to pick stuff that is beneficial to me and doesn't benefit him. But already knowing all of that, yeah, it's so helpful, even across the board helpful.
yeah, because like I can know, hey, I can move this far. You can only move this far. Statistically, you're at a disadvantage. Like little things like that. Obviously, it's still a dice game. Like, you can fail everything. I've had terrible games where I roll bad. Kim has terrible games where she rolls bad every game. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes
Like,
I have good games. I'm the opposite.
no, one of the funniest games we had, like it was that Soulblight one when you replayed your Soulblight, remember? And you just destroyed me. And then like last turn, I ended up getting like 8 points somehow, and I got a tie. And you were so mad because it was literally like 12-20 going into the last round. Like it was like, dude,
I
I needed a perfect turn. Like I needed every single card, every bonus, every way that I could get
every
points
six
had to happen. Every dice roll had to happen, and it did. And it ended up in a draw. And you were like, how is this possible? You're like, and you played phenomenally. Like her with her Soul Blight is like it's a different breed. Like, I don't know if you realize, like, when you play your Gloom, you play like a lot more fun, and you're like, yeah, like go trolls and like go stabbas, and like you
yeah,
just
do
have
like
fun.
goofy, yeah.
You know, it's true. But when you're playing your Soul Blight, yo, it's like a different being. Like,
Well, I feel like they
bro,
have
she goes for the throat with Soul Blight so fast. If she sees an opening, she'll be like, yeah, I'll just turn my Hallow Knights and I'll have 6 units charge this one thing.
all Blood Knights go
I'm like,
after.
bro, if this was Gloom, you'd be charging across the table with some squig that you thought was going to move 14, but you rolled a 1 on his random d6 movement, so he's not doing anything. And then you were like, well, then I'm going to run. And then your run rolls a 1 inch as well. And then you're like, well, I'm glad I
Every
wasted
single
all those dice rolls
time.
to move 2 inches.
Every single time. It's like all I need to roll is like, all I need to roll is a 3. I'm gonna get this. This is gonna be so amazing. I roll 1 every single
And
time.
then re-rolls into a 2.
So I'm cursed by the dice. But no, it is true. Yeah, like the different armies, they invoke like different feelings. Like with the Soul Blight, when I play them, I'm like, they have to be vampire assassins, kind of. They have to like bring the pain. But with Gloom, yeah, their whole personality is like, oh, they're just goofy. They're just there. They're just there. And they just happen to find a battle at the same
So I'm
time.
curious, because we did just get her finally. We did just get her the Skaven. So we got her the Skaven Tide half of the Skaven, which comes with the Skaven. So we did just get her that. So that's interesting. We haven't played a game with them yet. We're going to this weekend actually. But I'm curious to see like how you play them, like what play style you go.
I think it's going to be completely different because of, well, first of just their hit and wound profiles. I'm not
Yeah.
used to
When she was
something.
reading the Vermin Lords, so like your Corruptor, your Deceiver, your Warbringer, all those like the big lords. You know, as she was reading through the Vermin Lords, like your Corruptor, your Warbringer, the Deceiver, Lord Screech, and all these guys, and their hit profiles are like hit on 3s, wound on 2s, rend 3, damage 4 each with like 5 attacks. You're like, oh my gosh. And then I was like, yeah, don't forget the reason that they're hit 3 is because they want to tempt you to use all-out attack for +1 to hit. So technically, you're 2s to hit, 2s to wound, ignoring most armor in the game, which you can buff, doing tons of damage per hit with like 5 attacks. You're averaging like 20 damage. You're wiping most units, if not most things, off the table. And she's like looking at like Gloom, which are like hit on 4s, wound on 5s, no rend 1 damage. Like,
Yeah, it was very eye-opening to say the least.
yeah, it was interesting to see. But the one thing that, so with Heresy, I find that it's probably one of the last places I would tell somebody who's brand new, like a fresh starter. And again, that just simply boils down to the fact of like, I think it's over complicated, over complex for somebody getting into it. If that's the setting you love, please follow your heart, do what you will. I just feel like you may get frustrated at times because a lot of your games, it comes down to like, there's a lot of like book flipping. There's a lot of going back and forth and, hey, I have this rule. Well, I have this rule, which counteracts this rule, which then works with this rule. There's a lot of layering to it. Whereas with AOS and 40K now, especially with the latest editions, it's so streamlined. And so we actually have here today, just for our listeners, for people who aren't watching this on YouTube, we do actually have in front of us. So we have the Emperor's Children, 10th edition, a Collector's Codex, and we have the Gloomspite AOS 4th Collector's Edition Codex as well. So both of these came in the Army starter boxes. It's not like we went out and bought the limited edition codexes just because we want
No.
to. We just get these because they come in Army boxes usually, and we like getting the models early because we like playing a lot of games and building and doing a lot of fun stuff. But we're just going to open these super quick because there's a few things that I do want to talk about.
If anybody hasn't seen the Gloomspite book, this is the one that we are talking about in the Loon Shrine Book Club episode. Yeah, the artwork on it.
Yeah, so it's black and it has the Frazzle sun on it. And then on the back is the Bad Moon because now they have a Bad Moon and they have a sun now. They have 2 now. They have both. So this is the book that introduced the sun factions of them, which is all your Git Mob stuff, which is all your wolves and all the other stuff, which is funny because at time of recording, I believe that the Git Mob stuff is one of the strongest armies in the game right now because of just the sheer number of bodies they can take.
Hey, I'll take it.
Which is funny because in Spearhead, I think they're one of the worst Spearheads.
As somebody who plays them, I would also have to
I think
agree.
the fun factor is great. Where they struggle is the fact that the cavalry, the 2 packs of 3 wolves, those both should have the reinforcements rule on them, and then that Spearhead will be exactly balanced where it needs to be. Sorry, can you just go to a regular data sheet, not Path to Glory one? Yeah, just any one of these. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to start with, when you're diving into these, the first and foremost thing that's going to happen is, you're going to, first off, when you pick an army, there's multiple ways to look at an army. And a lot of people always, and I've pushed this and, Kim can attest to this, is the fact that I always say go for what looks best to you and what you connect with over rules. For example, Seraphon, and I would probably have to say like Magakin are probably my 3 top armies in Age of Sigmar. There have been times when all 3 of those armies were literally the worst in the game. There have been times when all 3 of those were literally the best in the game. As a matter of fact, 3rd edition Seraphon, I still challenge anyone 3rd edition book to try to go against Seraphon 3rd edition book before it got nerfed. Like as it was released, try to fight the Seraphon 3rd edition book as it was released. It's almost impossible to win because I can do like 40 mortal wounds every single turn to you. Every single turn, nonstop, I can do 40 mortal damage to you. And that's with like 2 units. That's not including the rest of the army. Because they made it so spellcaster heavy. And somebody like myself, what I do is I pick my armies and I usually build into a certain theme. For example, my Soul Blight, why I don't talk about my Soul Blight very often or too much, it's not that I don't love them. I love my Soul Blight a lot. My Soul Blight is an all Blood Knight list. That's it. You want to know what it includes? Prince Vordry, 1 Vampire Lord on a horse, and the rest are all Blood Knights. That's the entire list. Blood Knights. That's it. I have a Revenant Dragon and some Fellbats because it came in the Christmas box. You can see it actually right here, which is the Blood Knight Christmas box. Okay. So again, build into a theme that you like. Don't pick it because, oh, this army is good. You'll hear this all the time. Rule of cool will always win. Just because your army is good now, it could be the worst 2 months from now, a month from now. Okay. You could get a balance update next month and it literally changes how your army fundamentally works. And this is the other thing I wanted to talk about. We're going to touch back on this is how sometimes Games Workshop has fundamentally changed armies as you're waiting for a codex release, and we're going to jump into that as well. Starting off, so first and foremost, when you're picking like your army, pick it for rule of cool, because again, the models are probably going to be around for a lot longer than the rules are. In most cases, if you're an Eldar player, you can still buy models from the 90s, from before I was born. We are in 2026 in 3 weeks, and I can buy models from 1993, which is a year before I was born on this earth. They are still available for sale. Those rules have gone from second edition into 2026 will be 10th edition. 9 editions of rules for the same one model. By the way, the model I've talked about is Karandras, the Phoenix Lord of the Striking Scorpions, who apparently has a new model that they forgot to put in the new Eldar Codex. I don't believe that. Games
Forgot.
Workshop is a multi-billion-dollar business. Forgot is not in their vocabulary. Let's be real here. You have staffs on staff on staffs of people. Not one of them, even the guys who worked on the new Karandras models, mentioned it. No one mentioned a Phoenix Lord, one of the biggest characters ever.
No.
Come on, I don't believe that.
No.
So anyways, that's my whole point. Like, there's still models from the 90s that you can buy 30 years later. Pick the models that you like. The rules will change. But when you pick a thing, first and foremost, the first thing that's going to happen in your codexes is your army rules. Now, this is something that I wanted to talk about because in AOS and in 40K, the army rules are pretty much one page now. You're past it. Way past it. They're pretty much just one page now, which is something that I think is great. It gives you a little bit of lore, kind of like explaining what's happening, why they're like this, why this is their faction rule type of thing. But I like how most of the time it's plain and simple. Like for the Emperor's Children one, it's just one rule called Thrill Seekers, and it literally tells you what it does. It tells you how to use Legions of Excess, and then it goes right into picking your detachments. Very simple. Now with AOS and 40K, the main fundamental difference is when you're picking your secondary rules. For example, you get your faction trait, which is a rule that applies to every single unit in your army. You then get to pick in AOS, they're called battle formations. In 40K, they're called detachments. It's the same thing. The only main difference is that in AOS, your battle formations will just give one additional rule to your whole army, but that army rule usually dictates what play style you're going into. For example, for most of the time, it's like you can buff a certain unit type, like it'll say cavalry, or it'll say a certain keyword, or it'll say wizard, or it'll say priest or something. And that gets added to your faction rule. The same thing is true in 40K, actually. When you pick a detachment, the detachment adds just a secondary one-off army rule that applies to the entire army. So for example, in the Emperor's Children, the first one that you go into is the Mercurial Host, which just gives you the Quicksilver Grace, which just says you can reroll advance rolls that are made for Emperor's Children units for this army. Very simple rule. It applies to the whole army. So it's like, is this going to benefit the list that I'm running? Yes or no? For AOS, it's more so you pick your battle formation and then build your army into that. So for example, like with Kim, and she does tons and tons of trolls and Troggoths. So for her, she would probably choose the Trog Herd battle formation because it's designed to use a lot of Troggoth units and a lot of trolls. So then if you build into, if you pick that and then you build into a lot of trolls and Troggoths, they're benefiting from an additional rule, whereas the other units maybe won't. But if I'm building heavily into one, I'd rather benefit the most that I can.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, you almost want to, pick.
What's going to scale the most?
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's kind of what's similar in AOS and 40K. And then the one thing that I will say with 40K is now it's a little more limiting than what I'm used to in the past. So in the past in 40K, you just had what we have in AOS now, which is right now in AOS, you get to pick for free one heroic trait, which is a warlord trait, as we've always known it, and one heroic artifact, which is an artifact of power, which is what we've always called it in 40K for Dawns of Time. Now, the only thing with 40K that's different is you now only get enhancements. They've now rolled in heroic traits and artifacts of power into one thing called enhancements, and you get to pick up to 3 of these enhancements, and they cost points. Now in AOS, these are technically called enhancements. And if you do have, like, for example, like Kim is holding the Gloomspite book right now, so you can see that there's a heroic trait table, there's an artifact of power table. And what's not shown here is that if you have a Scourge of Gyran, which was the update that Games Workshop did, their like 1-year update for all the armies, they would also sometimes, for example, Seraphon got a mount battle trait. So for example, your mounts can now get a certain kind of like a trait for the mount. And that's an additional third table, which also counts as an enhancement. In AOS, you get to pick one from every table for free per army, unless it's otherwise states you can take more than one, which is very, very rare, if ever nowadays. But what I mean by that is if you have access to a third table, which is like a mountain trait or something like that, you do get to pick one of each, which is usually much better. So for example, Seraphon players, you have a heroic trait, you have an artifact of power, you have a mount table, and you get to pick between multiple spell lores, which is very rare as well, which is something we're going to dive into. Whereas in 40K, your enhancements are tied to your detachment first. In AOS, it's your artifacts of power and your heroic traits or your mount traits are not tied to a detachment. They simply add to the army. The one major difference before we move on is that in AOS, magic is more prevalent. So for example, in 40K, magic is kind of just like a rule or a buff that happens. Whereas in AOS, you actually get to pick a lore table. So most armies only have the one, which is specifically to them. Like for example, with you get Lore of the Dank for the gloom. But like Seraphon, we have two. I can do the constellation or I can do the earth one. So do I want to be more like star magic or do I want more like earthly magic? And I can pick one of the two tables. And then in AOS, what happens is you get each spell table has 3 options in it. You get all 3 options, but one of them will say the keyword unlimited, meaning that spell can be used by every wizard every turn once each. So if you have 10 wizards, all 10 can cast the unlimited power in one turn.
Yeah, those are the spells you want to look out for.
Which some of them are nuts. Like for Feck, they have one of the best ones because you get +2 to your movement and +1 to wound on any unit you pick. Well, if I have 10 wizards, that's 10 units. I can put +2 movement and +1 to wound, which in AOS is huge. That's a huge buff. Now, your other 2 spells that you get are usually the like, oh my goodness, these are crazy powerful ones, but you can only do them once per turn. Now that's once in your turn and once in the player turn or once in your opponent's turn, but that's a
Besides,
point. So, and then the final thing in AOS that you get, which is huge to add to your army, is you get a manifestation lore. So in AOS, spells can be physical. They can be actual models that you can buy. So for example, each army or most armies have a unique spell lore to them. So for example, with you, you get your mushroom you can summon, your little cauldron, your scuttle-tide little spider thing, and then you get your mini moon that you can summon. And those are models that you place on the table. Now, you're not restricted to the ones that are in your codex. You can pick generic ones that any army can take. So if your army doesn't have specific ones, for example, Seraphon don't have specific ones, they usually just take a generic one. Now, in 40K, your enhancements, what I've found for the most part, they either buff the model directly or they give him an aura to buff people around him. Like, for example, it'll say like, like intoxicating musk. Each time a melee attack targets the bearer's unit, if the strength characteristic of that attack is greater than the toughness, you subtract one from the rune roll. Pretty simple. It buffs the lord. It makes him better in combat. If your strength is higher than his toughness, you're -1 to wound.
yeah.
Simple. So it gives you little rules like that. Now, where things get really different is in 40K, your detachment will also determine what what stratagems you can use. Now in 40K, you get a lot more command points to use, and you use these command points for these stratagems to give you a buff or bonus or counter to something your opponent is doing sometimes. And these will fundamentally change how your army works and plays.
And I don't know if it's similar in 40K to AOS, but in 40K, are your manifestations like, do they have their own?
In 40K, there is no manifestations.
Oh, sorry.
Manifestations are AOS exclusive. So in AOS, you get to summon manifestations, and 40K spells are just a little buff on your datasheet.
That's right.
It's just
Sorry.
a rule. It's just a rule buff. Like if you go to like a sorcerer, it's just like a rule on his page that just says, "Hey, he gets to add this." Go way down.
That's right.
Like it's not an actual it's not like an actual like ability. Really, like it's kind of weird. Like mesmerizing form. Each time an attack targets this model, subtract 1 from the hit. That's all it does. Whereas like in AOS, it's like roll 2d6, and then you get to do the spell, and then it does this. That's in 40K, they don't have that at all.
Right. Okay. Because I was going to say, like in AOS, the manifestations, they also have their own hit and wound profile. Like they have their own health characteristic, save characteristic. Some of them, I believe, even have a ward.
Yeah, most of them get a ward if they're
Yeah.
death ones as well. So manifestations are like another unit that you basically get to summon, and they do have their own profile. They have their own health profile, their own wound profile, their own everything like that.
It's like another
And
character.
you can charge them, you can do damage to them, you can do everything. It's like another unit, but you need to be wary that when you kill it in your opponent's next turn, they can just summon it again.
Yes.
The caveat with manifestations is that because they're a spell, you as the opponent get to do a banish roll. And if you banish a spell, it auto dies. So that's the alternative, is you can just banish them like crazy. But where the big difference is in command points. In that 40K, you use your command points kind of like to do the stratagems. Whereas in AOS, you more so, it's not that your commands can't be used in your turn to do things. Like, for example, if you're a FEC player, you can spend one command point anytime you want to bring back a unit that's been destroyed, a half of the unit. Whereas before that was an ability we had, it's now a command point, so it's guaranteed now, as long as you save a command point. In AOS, you get 4 command points, I believe, 4 to start, as long as your general's alive.
Mm.
Now, most of those you're going to use to counter your opponent's play. For example, most people save 1 command point, and then in their opponent's turn, you can spend a command point for most stratagems in AOS are generic, so any army can do them and every army can do them. It's very limited that specific armies get them. And if they do, it's like to buff their army rule or
Mhm.
something, like FEC, like the one I just explained. But for example, like if Kim was to attack me and I know my unit, I really need this unit alive, I really need to do this, I'm just going to do a generic command called All Out Defense, which I can do once per phase on any one unit, and that unit will get +1 to their save roll, which is an incredible buff. Kim, as my opponent, can counter that and say, I will do All Out Attack on this unit, which means they get +1 to hit. That's a huge buff on her end. So me as her opponent, do I want to buff where she's applying her buff? Or do I save my buff knowing, yes, maybe this unit can die because maybe I can bring them back or whatever, but somewhere else across the table, there's another battle happening. I really need that to live. That's where I'm going to put my all out
Yeah.
defense. So that's how command points are usually to counter. And that's why in your opponent's hero phase, you can then do a command called Magical Intervention, which I, as Kim's opponent, can cast a spell in her turn. Why that's powerful is because I can summon something. Like if you, again, I'm going to go back to FEC because I think they have some of the best endless spells. Because you can also summon endless spells in your opponent's turn, but one of the ones for FEC, for example, is called the Cadaverous Barricade. What it does is, if I summon it in Kim's turn, because your movement phase happens after the hero phase where spells are summoned, the Cadaverous Barricade cuts her movement of any units within 6 inches by half. Well, if I
Yeah.
summon that in her turn, and I can place it up to 3 inches away. If I can place that up to 3 inches away and cover like 4 or 5 of her units, I've cut half of her army's movement in half in her turn. It's not even my turn,
Made me less effective.
right? But it changes your battle plan. It changes your units
Oh.
fundamentally. These are the little things you can do in your opponent's turn. And it's not that stratagems in 40K are not used in your opponent's turn. A lot of them are, because a lot of them say like, hey, when you're being attacked, and they do say like, in the fight phase, in the command phase, like little things like that. I just find that with 40K, you have to memorize your stratagems. Although, yes, you can have this book open, and most people, they just play with the book open. It's a lot of going back and forth, whereas in AOS, it's generic commands for everyone.
Right.
So once you just learn, like, hey, in my movement phase, I can either do redeploy or at the double. That's it. Those are the 2 options. So the way my brain works, and maybe this will be simpler for some people, is I go by phase. It's the hero phase. What can I do in the hero phase? If it's my turn, I can do rally, which is I roll the amount of dice. I roll in, I forget. I almost never use rally. A lot of my armies, I use other commands, but in death armies, rally is really popular. So for example, you roll, I believe it's up to 6 dice, and it can go up to 9 if you have a certain heroic trait or stuff like that. And then for every 5+, you get to return a slain model or a wound back to the unit. So it's a very popular command to bring back a lot of models. The other thing you can do is magical intervention. So it's my turn. It's my turn. Kim can say, for 1 command, I'm going to either chant a prayer, cast a spell, or summon a manifestation in your turn. I have to be aware and know that she could do that at any point. And this is why certain armies are very good in certain phases. And this is what makes AOS so fun, in my opinion. Seraphon have the ability that I can banish or unbind, which is the equivalent of people who played 40k previously, when we had a psychic phase, you could also unbind the spells. And your opponent did a spell, I can counter it and say, no, I'm a stronger psyker than you. I'm shutting down your spell. Basically, unbinding is the same thing. When Kim casts a spell, I can unbind it. And if I can roll higher than her value, so she rolls an 8, I need to roll a 9. I cannot match it. It has to be a higher value. Then that spell doesn't work because my guy's saying, I'm a stronger sorcerer than you. Screw your spell. It's not working. So you can unbind. Whereas in 40k, again, psychic is just a keyword now. So Kim, you haven't seen this. So any listeners, I'm literally on page 85 of the Emperor's Children Codex. I'm just showing this to Kim because again, Kim's not a 40k player. She's never played 40k. So see like this, see how these have the psychic keyword in brackets? That's it. That's the whole psychic power. So it just tells you. So for example, warped interference, psychic. While this model is leading a unit, each ranged attack that targets them, they have the benefit of cover. That's it. That's the whole psychic power. So it's just an ability. Whereas in AOS, for example, like I've already mentioned, like the Feck one, for example, or even your Gloomspite, Kim's Gloomspite one is that she can change the moon.
Yeah.
That's a great unlimited spell when you're fielding multiple units all across the board. You're saying, listen, I really need, hey, my squigs are up front. They're very fast. So turn 1, I want to buff my squigs. Change the moon to be the one that buffs squigs.
Yeah, the moon is such a cool.
Next turn, hey, right behind the squigs, I got my stabbas, which are a little faster. I don't mind sacrificing them. That's what they're there for. I got my loon shrine, all this stuff.
My
Throw your stabbas up in the line behind them. Buff the stabbas the next turn, changing the moon. The following turn, change it to be Tragoth, and then keep changing it to keep buffing the unit you need that turn. Or take Scragot and just choose whichever one you want, but that's a whole other topic.
Well,
sorry, before we move forward, just one last thing I want to touch upon. On top of all this, in AOS, you also get a faction terrain piece. Now in 40k, you do have faction terrain pieces. They're horrible.
Do they do the same?
No, they're horrible. No, they're horrible.
This may be a silly question.
When they came out, they seemed great. Okay. When they were coming out in 8th edition, we were so happy because it was like, cool. We finally get every army got something unique to put on the table as a terrain piece.
Right. And it's the same in like the terrain in 40k. Is it the same in AOS where like they also give you certain buffs? They can give you certain advantages, disadvantages.
So yes, it did give you rules. So for example, big Death Guard player myself, big Necron player myself. Just going to give examples of those, what those did back in 8th edition. I don't know what they do now. Don't hold me to it. For example, back in the day, when the Necron terrain piece came out, it was like these like little pylons, these 3 little like pylon things. So Necrons had an aura where they could like emit, like it was basically called like, if you're in the aura, it's like, because Necrons are all about their lords are the only ones that have a personality. Everybody else is like a husk. They're not actually there. Like it's just like a robot. So what it was called command protocol. So you got an aura that your lord is able to command them because they're close enough to him that they listen to his authority. Pylons, what they did is if you had a lord within range of the pylon, it extended his protocol aura to include the aura of the terrain piece as long as he's in its aura.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So we had stuff like that. The Death Guard one, it made us that the terrain piece automatically had the disease aura that Death Guard have was emitting from that terrain piece, meaning you as my opponent, if you came within because the way that Nurgle disease works is every turn, it increases the range. It starts at 3 inch, then goes to 6 inch, then goes to 9 inch, then turn 3, and then it stays at 9 inches going forward. And that gives an aura of -1 to your toughness as my opponent. But my terrain piece had that aura on it.
Right. Okay.
So if you came within range of the terrain piece, then I could shoot you and you were at -1 toughness because you're within range of the terrain piece.
Yeah.
So they did stuff like that. In AOS, certain armies, like Gloomspite is probably the best example. Your terrain piece makes or breaks your army. I'm not joking. Her terrain piece, if she is not going all troll build, so if she's going stabbas, squigs, anything like that, her terrain piece literally changes how she plays because her terrain piece allows her to bring units back from the dead.
Yes.
So as her opponent, I have to take out her terrain piece. Otherwise, she can almost endlessly keep bringing guys back if she wants to. It is such a big thing. And yes, it does cost 1 command point to do it. Bet money, Kim is going to save a command point every turn if it means bringing units back from the dead.
Yeah, especially with how I roll.
If that was 2 command points, I'd probably spend that because that's such a powerful ability. This gives you the Feck army rule. This is the Feck army rule as your terrain piece, which is bring a unit back from the dead at half strength for 1 command point. That's my Feck army rule. That's what I get.
Well, yeah, the glooms is really, really cool. The bad moon, loon shrines.
Yeah. So now The terrain pieces can all be destroyed as well, your faction terrain. So when you set up a table, you set up regular terrain, like that you normally would for a game. Then you set up your faction terrain, which is your terrain that's specific to your faction. Not every faction has a terrain piece right now. Although I'm hard pressed to think of one that doesn't now, because they've added this edition, they're adding anybody that doesn't have a terrain piece is pretty much getting one. Like they just added Carcharodon Overlords was the one that I was thinking doesn't have one, but they do now. Their latest codex gave them the Skyport.
Oh, the Skyport.
Yeah, so it's like a flying dock for their ships to come and like stop at, because they're all flying, right, all the time. So they need like anchors in space that they can like dock their ships to. That's so they have the Skyport.
It would be cool if they made it so that that terrain you would have to hang it from the ceiling, so it had to be like elevated in the air.
Well, the Lumineth one looks like it's floating.
Does
it looks like it's a floating rock. Yeah, and it can move. That's the other thing. Some of these terrain pieces can move, by the way.
Yeah, they're like interactive.
They're like full-on models. Like they have their own data sheet. Like Kim's Loon Shrine is right here in front of us. Like it has movement, nothing. It's a giant rock.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
It's got 14 health. So this thing actually has a lot of health. That's the sad thing. It's got it's got a 4+ save and no control. Yeah, terrain pieces can't hold objectives. Go figure.
Who would have thought?
And it only comes with one rule. The thing is that this rule is just so good because it just says pick any friendly, non-hero, non-monster, and non-war machine Gloomspite unit. But that means anything that's cavalry, anything infantry.
A lot.
Her trolls are infantry.
Yeah.
Troggoths, Fellwaters, and Rockguts are infantry. They're not monsters. All your squigs are all cavalry.
Stabbers.
Cavalry or beast, which it doesn't say cavalry or beast here. They're not war machine and they're not monsters. So the only thing you can't bring back is like your Wheelas, your Sunstealer Wheelas, and all the, you can't bring back Dankhold Troggoths or Trug.
Which makes sense. If they let me do that, I think it would be a little bit out of control.
As a whole, I feel like personally in AOS, there's a lot more front loaded, but it gives you a lot more model variety. For example, you have minimum 3 models for your manifestation. Some manifestation lores, by the way, like for Ideneth Deepkin, their manifestation is a giant thing. It's a giant beast. Because it's meant that they're summoning this like giant abyss creature to help them in this battle. And it gets to summon like tentacles all over the table that do like its own thing. So it's not like they get 3 mini manifestations. They get one that's it's on a pie plate base, guys. It's huge. Like the thing is massive. I just bought one for my hobby vice because that was what he wanted. He asked for one of them. The thing is huge.
Oh,
it's huge. That's the hobby vice gift I just sent out. That's their manifestation lore.
Hopefully it's not listening.
It's that giant sea creature with the thing. No, even if you are, I'm not saying who it is. Maybe there's more than one person.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, secret.
Yeah,
it's a secret.
So anyways, in AOS, I feel like you get more because you get your manifestations, you get your terrain piece. Not that there's not terrain in 30K, but your terrain piece matters a lot more in AOS.
Yeah.
You get actual spells. This is the one thing I don't like about 40K is they took away the actual psychic phase, which is now psychic is just like a rule. But a lot of the times psychic is a negative because there's armies that have anti-psyker. I don't see the positives of psychics a lot. Whereas in AOS, you do have anti-wizard and anti-priest are now keywords that exist. Can you name more than 3 units that have that? I can name 2 off the top of my head. I can name 2 units that have that. And I know a lot of data. I play a lot of armies. Like I have like 8 or 9 armies. And I know off the top of my dome, I think 2 data sheets that are not named. No, fuck, they're both named people. One of them is named and one is not. The only 2 people I know that have anti-priest and anti-wizard hard baked into them is one would be Reichnor the Grim Hailer from the Night Haunt, which is the guy that flies on the flying horse. He's literally designed, like his lore is that he hates priests and wizards and he literally hunts them down. Like that is his whole lore. So he literally has that baked in. He has a special rule where he actually gets +1 to hit and +1 to wound against wizards and priests.
I'm pretty sure my giant.
I think one of your giants has it.
I'm pretty sure.
Sorry, but I'm talking like you don't have to give them a warlord trait, a psychic power, or an artifact of power to give them anti-priest or anti-wizard. Like the Lord Veritent is the only other one I know for Stormcast. I know there's going to be more Stormcast. I haven't dived into Stormcast too much. I'm just starting them. I literally just bought the Spearhead. They're not even dry brushed yet.
Who?
But the Lord Veritent, he has a baked-in anti-wizard, anti-priest, but priests and wizards are huge. They can literally change your game. Like completely. Like when you remember, like when you were reading Vizek Scour for Skaven. the priest, the guy that gets 2 priest abilities. Remember, you were like, oh my God, yeah, he has a 5+ save and a 5+ ward. He's not the most survivable thing in the game. Yeah, when you read about all the buffs he applies to the army, who cares if you're not throwing him in to fight Archeon. You're not
I think he
like,
had like
but
five,
like if I was playing him and you're playing Gloomspite, I'm not throwing him against Trug. I'm keeping him back to buff things to tie down Trug for the whole game.
yeah, I'm
I
sticking him in
know
a
the power
corner.
of
One single unit is when you're going up against hordes.
you're going against garbage.
Like when you're
Yeah,
trying
Archeon's
to
great.
stop.
Archeon's great that he can do 40 damage a turn. Yeah, if it's in the stabas that she's going to bring back the next turn.
Yeah, well,
Who
exactly.
cares? Who cares that Archeon killed 40 stabas? Bro, she brought 20 of them back, buffed them up, and now they're stronger than they were before because now they're in range of a wizard.
Yeah, and also like
Like, what the what?
like a good board and a good save is amazing, but when you're once again rolling like 20, 40 saves, there's gonna be some that get through.
Weight of dice will always win. I've always said this. Weight of dice wins all the time.
But sorry, I wanted to say really fast too, like the one thing with AOS versus 40K is that because AOS is a more condensed version, like it's not as in depth. I feel like it's a lot easier to understand why you're doing certain things and why your army like has certain abilities or certain like regiment.
Yes.
Versus like in 40K, there's a lot of behind the scenes rules and a lot of stuff where if you're a new player, you don't really grasp, I think, as much. Like it's like you're doing the move just because it says to do the move in the book, not because like you truly understand why you're doing it. At least that's what
Well, and this is
it
the
is to
thing
me.
with AOS versus 40K that I'm seeing a lot of discussions happen where in previous years, what I heard, and this was a common topic, this is not a hidden thing, is that everybody's like, oh my God, AOS is no lore, AOS is no lore, AOS is no lore. Talk to anybody new getting into the hobby, they'll go, thank goodness AOS has barely any lore. Because 40K is overwhelming now. Because somebody getting into 40K, they're saying, I don't want to read 40 years of lore to understand why this one specific guy painted red is doing battle versus the guy in blue. Like, and I'm all for it. Trust me. I've read more lore than I will ever find use for. But now I'm seeing the opposite argument where new people are saying, I don't want to get into 40K. It's overwhelming. There's too much lore. There's too many armies. There's too much. I'm stun locked. Sorry, I'm decision locked because I don't know what to go first. I want to do this, then I want this, I want this, I want that, I want that. And by the time you're looking at all your decisions, you're already fatigued. You make no choice and then you don't get into it at all. AOS, so first and foremost, the big discussion between 40K and AOS wise, Age of Sigmar wins. This is not a discussion. This is not a debate. This is a universal, almost universally. I hear this across the board where people say most of the time when AOS miniatures are released, it usually wins model of the year. Not the 40K minis don't win. It's just when you look at the top charts, most people prefer AOS models because a lot of 40K stuff is copy pasted Marines. Like if I took a Space Marine with a bolt gun and I changed him to have a sniper rifle now I call it an Eliminator. I put a plasma gun on him, he's now a Hellblaster. I put a multi-melta on it now, he's now new squad. I put a heavy bolt gun on him now, he's now a heavy guy. It's the same model. Like it's the same model. All I did was change the gun. The pose is even the same. Now you want me to buy 5 kits of this. Dude, in AOS, do you know how different a Gloomspite army looks when you're doing trolls versus stabas versus squigs? One army can have 3 completely different looking builds. And then I haven't even talked about the spider side of it. You can then go spiders and go all monsters, nothing but giant spiders that are pie plates and bases. You can bring like 9 of them. That's your whole army. Nothing but giant spider guys. And if you're thinking, well, you just said wizards and priests are pretty good. Guess what? Your wizards and priests are on the giant spiders.
Yeah, they're riding them.
They're riding the giant spiders. And they're giant.
Shaman
I mean, huge. Like they're huge models. So when it comes to the discussion of models, it's not a discussion. The AOS side is better. They're incredible 40K minis. I love 40K. I originally got into the hobby for 40K. As a matter of fact, I have said that if 5 years ago, if somebody sat me down and said, you're going to be more into AOS and Horus Heresy than you are into 40K, I would have laughed at you and I would have said, you don't know anything about me.
You're crazy.
But unfortunately, seeing where 10th edition is gone. It's just not my flavor of tea. And that's fine. I sat out one edition. Did I sit online and bitch nonstop online about how shit this edition is and screw this, screw that, like most hobbyists do? No. Guess what? I turned and said, oh my God, there's 500 other hobbies out there. I'm going to do one of the other ones that I actually enjoy and have fun doing.
Yeah, now I can take a little break. Now I can
Now I
try
got more
something
into
else.
AOS. I learned about that. I got into Heresy, big Saturnine army, my
Glory.
Paths to Glory in AOS. We're getting into that. Dark Waters coming out. We're good. Like there's so much more. If you don't like something, just sit out one edition. I still bought the codexes, so if I want to go back later, I have all the stuff. I still supported the system. I still bought the limited edition boxes. I just didn't play because it just didn't fit what I see the rules as. I didn't sit and bitch. I didn't complain about to nobody. I just said, it's not for me. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Have all the fun you can. I'm going to do something else, and I'm glad we can still be friends and talk about it. Going forward, though, model discussion aside, so what's left is the actual data sheets. This is where probably my favorite part is. So Kim has data sheet open right now. So she's on the Snarl boss on Warwheela, which is also Snarl boss and Wolfgate Retinue in the Gloomspite book. I am just on Fulgrim and Lucius the Eternal because it's just the first data sheets there. And I just want to quickly touch on data sheet differences. So first and foremost with AOS now, they didn't used to do this. I don't know why, which they do now, which is good, is they actually tell you what these things do. So previously, if you look at like a previous edition one, like this just said 12-inch. It didn't say move here. So you either knew that the top part meant move or you had no idea what this meant.
You're just kind of guessing.
Yeah, so when I got into AU, just Sigmar, that's how it was. You had to read the main rule book. It explained what these meant, and then you could understand this. Now you can open up any data sheet. It just says move, 12-inch, save, 5+, health 2, control 1. That's it. With newer codex, with newer battle tones, so if you're not like Skaven, Stormcast, and I think the first one or two after that, correct me if I'm wrong. Now, with that big wheel where they say that, all those 4 stats, and the top right of that wheel where move and save come together, there will now be a red circle, which will also sometimes have a value inside it. That is now your ward save. They updated that from the time of release of 4th edition to when they updated these codexes, because to find your ward saves were at the bottom of your data sheet, and people hated that because you would miss it all the time. So now they include it next to the save in a red bubble. There are rumors that next edition, or when we get another update, they're going to be adding 2 more circles to this, which will just be your power level if you are a wizard or a priest, which I think is massive. I think they should have always done that, because right now I have to look at the bottom of the data sheet when all my stuff is at the top, and that's just not
Doesn't
good
make
for
any
fluidity.
sense.
So just to show that I am being harsh and fair, I am criticizing the AOS one as much as I'm criticizing the 40K one, because the AOS one does need improvement. It doesn't. All of them should have had a ward save at the top there. All of them should include another bubble that shows your power level. That's just my opinion. It should be super easy for me to look at this and go, this is a wizard. He does this. This is his power level. This is his move. This is his ward. I should be able to look at the top half of a data sheet and know almost everything that unit can do, in my opinion. Now, special rules, that's a different discussion. You can have 2 units that look almost identical. For example, Squig Hoppas versus Boingrot Bounders. It's the same box. The difference, if you're not a Gloom player, you'll never tell the difference. They look identical on the table.
No,
you know what the difference is?
massively
You want to know what the difference is? Like legit, the weapon in their hand and the helmet you put on them. That's it. Everything else about the model is identical. The squig they ride, the body, the other arm, everything. It's the weapon in their right arm and the helmet you put on them. That's it. That's the only difference. So how do you tell the difference? Well, there's special rules. They're going to have very different special rules. Boingrot Bounders are very offensive. They're very hard hitting. They're very elite. Squig Hoppers are almost like the guys that first discovered you could ride a squig, and now they're holding on for dear life, praying that this actually works. That's kind of the difference of the lore. Whereas Boingrot Bounders, like a veteran's experience, Squig Hoppers don't know what the hell they're doing.
That's actually a very good way to explain them.
That's literally it. 40K data sheets across the top gives you a prefix of what it is. They're very, like, it's pretty simple once you get into it. Horus Heresy is very similar. They use the same lettering system, actually. So, for example, at movement, I don't know what else they could have put there. That's pretty easy. T for toughness. It's V, save. Now, with 40K, they did do it where they have your save and then your invol save is right underneath. So I really like that, because for simplicity's sake, you always need to be checking your invol save. Just like in AOS, you always need to be checking if you have a ward, because it literally matters if you're alive or not. By the way, for people that don't know, a ward is a feel no pain. So for people that play 40K, you have feel no pain or damage mitigation rules, as they're called now in Horus Heresy and stuff like that. Feel no pain in AOS works the same way. If I fail my save, I look at the damage of the weapon. If it's damage 1, I roll 1 ward save. If I roll equal to or higher value of my ward, I mitigate the damage. If the damage is 5, I roll 5 ward saves. If the damage is 1, I roll 1 ward save. That's per attack. Like something like a Vermin Lord Deceiver that can pump out something like 24 damage a turn, you would roll 24 ward saves.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
A Staba that does statistically 0 per turn, especially if you're Kim playing with Stabas, most of the time they're only 1 damage each, so you roll 1 ward save for each. Pretty simple. There is no such thing as an invulnerable save in AOS. In AOS, you get your save and you get your ward. In 40k, there's an added layer of protection where you have your save, you have your invul, which is a backup save, and then you have a ward. So an invul save, for people that don't know, is you have your save profiles. For example, Lucius the Eternal has a 2+ save and a 4+ invul. Why does he need 2 saves? Well, he has a 2+ save, but if your opponent has an armor pierce value, which is rend in AOS, is armor pierce in 30k. Same thing. They just changed the name for whatever reason. If your armor pierce is 3, for example, which would make my 2+ save a 5+ save, I can then say I have an invulnerable save, which is better than that save. I can opt to use the better save at any time I want. So if they hit you very hard with a weapon, it gives you a protective save that guarantees probably a better dice roll than what the armor pierce value would do.
Pretty convenient.
So this gives you a defense mechanism against very high hitting one-shot weapons. It gives you a defense mechanism to be able to save against them. Usually your heroes and characters get them, or things from like Terminator and Elite stuff.
Right.
In AOS, you don't have that. It's not a thing. You have your save, you have your ward, you're dead. Or alive, if you're me, and roll all ward saves.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect. Wounds is the same, wounds versus health. I believe in 40k, you count down. In AOS, you count up. And this is something that we've discussed recently in our games. We're the type of people where when I play, I'm used to the 40k side where you count down. So if it says 5, that's how much is left on the unit. In AOS, you count up because you count the amount of damage taken on the unit, because rules, so certain passives, like special rules on datasheets, will say if a unit has taken X amount of damage, you then get to apply XYZ. So you have to count the amount of damage taken, which is counting up instead of counting down from the amount of
It's so
wounds.
confusing. It's probably taken
So
like a solid 2 weeks
when
to
you're
get
playing
used to.
AOS, the number you see there is the number of wounds you've done, not the amount left.
My brain just automatically wants to
it's
put
very weird.
wounds remaining, so it trips us up a couple times.
Moving on, in 40k, we have a leadership characteristic. So we used to have bravery in AOS, which used to literally just demolish horde armies. Like, I don't know anybody who played horde armies before. You guys know, like, hey, you got 40 clan rats. Bro, those clan rats were at 3 bravery. So if you lost 3 rats, you were rolling a die for how many more ran away. That's a d6 added to the amount dead. It was crazy. You could wipe hordes like it was nothing previously. Now, hordes might be some of the toughest things to choose through, depending on the horde and buffs you can get off. Anyways, in my opinion, some hordes are incredibly hard to choose through, regardless. And then you have an OC, which is an occupancy score, which is literally the same as a control score. I actually don't understand why they put occupancy like that instead of just control.
Yeah. It just kind of sounds
like there's nothing wrong with saying control in 40k is your control score, but they put occupancy.
Maybe.
Anyways, not the point.
It's like when you're writing an essay and you have a word count to hit.
So why I think AOS is a better system for beginners. So first and foremost, literally, so when you're reading so for example, like Kim has a data sheet open here and I have a 40k data sheet open here. So for example, so Lucius has the Blade of Lair, and then in brackets, it gives you precision. So that's the rule. It gives you the precision special rule. In AOS, we have the same thing where it'll literally tell you like if you look at the Snarl boss on Warwheela on page 90 of the Gloomspite book, his first thing is called Chain Basha, amazing name. And it says crit auto wound right underneath it. So that's the ability of the weapon. Crit auto wound, just like Lucius's Blade of Lair gets precision.
Yeah.
Now they do different things. Crit auto wound, which means if on a 6 to hit, that hit roll automatically wounds the target. You don't roll a wound roll. Precision, on the other hand, has to do with fighting a character. If you fight a character, you can target the character in a unit directly instead of having to fight his bodyguard unit and then kill the character. You can fight the character directly because you're precise with your precision. Anyways, moving forward, it's pretty similar. So you have attacks and then weapon skill. Weapon skill is just the 2 hit roll. That's all that means. Whereas in AOS, they just say 2 hit. In 40K, they write weapon skill, but it's the same thing.
See, it's just little changes like that that can
Where I like
confuse you.
AOS more, though, is the next step. In the wound roll, in 40K, it says strength 8.
Right.
In AOS, it says 2 wound, 3+.
So a lot more
It just tells
straightforward.
you,
A lot
this
more
is what you roll.
straightforward. Yeah, you're not looking at a table or a chart or trying to figure out your toughness versus their toughness and yeah, what you can do, what the damage you can do is. It's just straight up.
So in 40K, you have to remember the table, which is I don't like
The
for
table.
intro people. And the table is very simple. If it's equal, it's 4+. If my strength is equal to my opponent's toughness or vice versa, we each get a 50-50 chance. Half the time it'll go my way, half the time it'll go your way. If my strength is higher than your toughness, but not double, it is a 3+ to wound for everyone. If it's double or more, it's 2+ to wound. If my strength is lower, but not half of your toughness, it is 5+ to wound. If it is half or worse, it's a 6+ to wound. A 1 always fails. So they've done that chart. And if you can memorize a chart, yeah, it's pretty easy. The problem is you're already trying to memorize so much.
Yeah, the entire game.
You're trying to memorize your army rule, your detachment, all your stratagems, your enhancements, all your sheets, the mission, the rules, everything. It's just another thing added to memorize. Why?
Yeah, where AOS is just
It's
straightforward.
direct.
Yeah, here it is.
Now, I have heard the counter argument where people say, well, why should a small unit like a skeleton be able to wound, Archeon or Nagash as easily as they can wound another skeleton?
I do get that point.
I kind of get that. In the same breath, it's like this is a fantasy world where pretty much every weapon is magic. Everything is magical. Everything. So like a sword of death would still be pretty harsh. And the way that they counter this, by the way, ass units like that, you usually have like a 5 to wound.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult.
Like you're hitting on 4s and then you're wounding on 5s. So to put that into statistical odds for people, if you have 20 attacks, you're hitting with 10 of them. Out of those 10 hits, you're going to average 6 wounds. So out of 20 attacks, you're going to get 6 on average. 6 out of 20. That's not then including the fact that let's go with this argument because people love to use like Archeon and Nagash for this argument. Nagash is a 3+ save, which most horde units don't have a rend. If they do, you're probably paying a premium for them, and they're probably hitting and wounding better than what I've described. So most of the time they have no rend and 1 damage. Nagash is a 3+ save, a 5+ ward. He can heal like 2d6 a turn very easily. And he's got like 18 health, and he can make himself ethereal so he can ignore your rend. And then he can auto kill you.
Doesn't he just sound so much fun to go up against?
Nagash literally has an auto kill ability. Like he can just remove a model off the table every turn. So if you want to throw some skeletons into that, like your skeletons won't live very long. Nagash can dump out like 40 mortal wounds a turn.
But what if?
And then he can just resurrect his own guys. And Nagash is a unique resurrect ability where it specifically states when Nagash brings a unit back from the dead, it is not half the unit. It is the full unit. That's why it's very popular to see Nagash in OCR Bone Reaper lists, because you take those big guys, the Archai that you love so much that every Spearhead wipe you, the big OCR guys. You reinforce a unit of those, so it's like a 500-point unit. They can kill anything in the game because they can dump like 50 damage a turn or something. They're insane. Like they're one of the strongest units in the game. The problem is you as my opponent, you're going to spend 3 turns killing them, and then on turn 4, Nagash brings the entire unit back from the dead.
Yeah, and then the game's over.
So this is why like that argument, like it doesn't make sense to me. It's like, yeah, okay, maybe a skeleton shouldn't be wounding Archeon the same as he's wounding, a grot. Okay, that's kind of a good argument. In the same breath, like skeletons also wound like absolute garbage. Like we're not talking like 3+, 2+s to wound here. We're talking 5s and 6s to hit and wound.
Yeah, it's
Like, yeah, it's 40 dice. It's still weight of dice. But then you're going up against something that has a really good save, can probably ignore damage, can heal like crazy, and probably doesn't really care about your skeletons. It's
no, they're probably more
happy
annoying.
that you're sending skeletons and not your Archaon versus him. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't know. I find like these arguments are so like, dude, I've never played a game where like I've played games where like I was up against Techless. I threw my 3 biggest things I had at him. I didn't throw my garbage, dog water units. I threw the best I had at him because I needed him dead immediately. The guy can auto cast 4 spells a turn every turn. He's dictating the flow of the battle as long as he's on the table. I want him dead. I'm not, hey, I'm going to tie him up with skeletons. Buddy, I'm throwing the 3 high-pointed, most biggest things I have at him to kill him as fast as possible so he can't auto-cast 4 times a turn.
Yeah, it's like sending my Trogos after your Feck hero. I forget his name, but when he saved the points at the end of the round.
Yeah. So she's talking about, for those wondering, so the Feck, they have 2 spearheads right now. One came in their new battle tome, and one was the previous one that was in Fire and Jade. The one in Fire and Jade still uses Noble Deed points the old way that we had it, not the new Delusion way that we have it. Because now we don't really have Noble Deed points, but the old Spearhead uses it the old way. Well, the old Spearhead, if you take the Vargolf pretty much runs in. He gets 8 attacks, 7 with one profile, 1 with another. And then the 7 attack profile, it's got rend 1, damage 2, and then the 1 other attack profile, it's got rend 2, damage 3. So you're able to dump out 17 damage with him. 17 damage with him on the starting turn. The thing that's nuts with him, after he fights, he gets to heal D6. For every damage point he does, he gets a Noble Deed point, which if you're at 6 Noble Deeds, you add 1 to his attack characteristics. So he would go up to 8 attacks with his one profile and 2 attacks with his other, which then bumps him up to doing 22 damage a turn as one model. He then heals D6 at the end of every turn and then retreats from combat. So why that might not be that powerful, but why I've proven it's one of the strongest things, and especially in Spearhead, is because he can move 10 inches. So he moves 10, charges 2d6, right? So he just moves like 22 inches, which the whole board in Spearhead is 22 inches. He then fights you, probably racks up Noble Deed points, and then falls back either closer to my lines, which then gives the Noble Deed buff of everything getting +1 attack within 6 inches of him. That's Feck. Or I fall back deeper into your lines and score like 5 Spearhead battle tactic cards, because it's like be within 3 inches of your opponent's line, be within 3 inches of the table edges,
be wholly within
an enemy territory, not in combat. And it's like he will go fight, fall back, and then you score after he falls back. It's like, oh, look, I just scored all my cards from this one guy. And you're like, what the heck is happening? I'm
like, this guy, why is he running everywhere? Like,
so good.
Why is he so fast? Why is he getting everywhere?
He's so good because he has to move 10 inches in my movement phase. Run him if you want to. Don't charge with him and then fall back 10 inches another direction. So you're everywhere on the map with this one guy, so your opponent doesn't know how to deal with him because you're all over the map.
It's the worst.
Sorry, but anyways, going back to these data sheets. So one thing that I'm not a fan of the 40k side of things is just simply you have to memorize things. In AOS, I don't. So for a pure beginner, I actually always recommend start with AOS. I actually think the painting process in AOS is better too. I think if a lot of the times people get frustrated because when you paint Space Marines, flat armor panels that are circular, that are like, because they're not like flat, they're like legs, kneecaps,
rounded,
shoulder. It's all rounded armor stuff, or like vex, concave.
Yeah, what's the opposite of concave?
Convex. Yeah, convex armor stuff. So you're stuck painting, like learning how to do shadows with stuff like that. Whereas like AOS, if you pick up Skaven, brother, you'll slap chop a Skaven army in one weekend and it will probably look better than 90% of the armies out there.
Yeah.
Because it takes so well to contrast and the slap chop method. I think overall, like if somebody's first starting out, I would almost recommend, like if this is your first actual tabletop experience, try Spearhead. That would be my first recommendation. Try Spearhead. It simplifies the AOS rules even more. It literally breaks it down so you only have, I think, gives you your army rule, your regiment, 2 options. Pick one or the other, whichever you like. Change it up. They're fun. All of them are fun.
Yeah.
We've had lots of fun doing most of them for most armies. And your enhancements is just pick your general, which it will tell you who your general is, and he gets 1 additional rule. That's it.
Yeah, and I would also say that starting with AOS, again, it just gives you the base knowledge of transitioning then to 40k, and then eventually like transitioning to Horus Heresy or whatever order you want to do them. But I think AOS, it gives you that base knowledge.
Yeah. Like especially because I think one thing that I think also is overwhelming for new players, and this maybe doesn't get talked about enough, the length of an actual game.
Yes.
This is something that if you've never done it before can be very, wow, I wasn't expecting that. A lot of people don't know that you actually need like 5 to 6 hours to play one game of AOS or Warhammer. And if you think I'm exaggerating, or you think it's not that, start a timer. And to play a game, by the way, that game is a bare table. Okay? So I'm talking set up your mat, set up your terrain, set up your armies properly, play an actual game, deconstruct the table, put all the terrain away, put the mat away, so it's back down to a bare table. You are not looking at and play a full 5-round game. Full 5 rounds. Don't do this whole thing that they do on YouTube where they record 4 battle rounds all the time. Nobody films a 5th battle round because they just say, well, this happens and this happens and this happens and this is how the game's going to end. First off, it's a dice game. You don't know that. Your opponent can roll all 6s in the final battle round and the game could be totally different. This is why I don't like that YouTube channels only ever record 4 battle rounds and talk out the 5th. It's a dice game. Everything is by chance. You could roll complete garbage the next turn and completely amazing the turn
Which has
after.
happened to us.
Which has happened and completely swung the game at the last turn the opposite way we talked about thinking it was going to go. So this is why I don't like that they did do that. Now, on another sense, I'm a very empathetic person. Too empathetic. I understand that they're filming 10 of these bat reps a week. That's their job. At some point, if you do something repetitive enough, it's no longer the same enjoyment as it was. That is why athletes increase the weight. If we only did the same weight countlessly for repetitions, we would just get bored and stop. But if I add 10 pounds, I'm now challenging. Can I keep up with what I did at a previous weight? It is now a game of trying to catch up to myself. That is why it's interesting, because we're adding something to it. We're changing a variable to see if the end result can still be the same or better. If it's the same thing over and over and over, you will just get bored.
Yeah.
You just won't do it.
Just naturally.
That's why a lot of people don't like painting horde armies. You love painting, but you don't like horde armies because you're looking at the same mini with the same composition and the same shadows 50 times. If you do 3 of them like that and then pick up a 4th mini that's completely different, even if it's the same model, but instead of having a spear and shield, he now had an axe and a sword and was dual wielding, I bet you're going to be like, this is so much fun. All of a sudden, you're going to have a spike in motivation because it's a different mini. You're now painting different shadows. You're looking at it differently. You're this, you're that, little things like that. So I don't know, like I love wargaming overall, obviously. I think this is a great hobby for anybody who wants a mental escape. I think the community is like a wave. It's ups and downs. Sometimes this community is the best community ever. Sometimes this is one of the most toxic communities I've seen online because people get so involved with everything and everybody needs to be involved in everybody's business and all this other crap that nobody cares about. You're here to hobby. I'm not here to talk politics or anything like that. As a matter of fact, if you ask anybody who's been behind the scenes of this podcast, I've been very strict on the no politics thing because I don't care. I don't care what your political view is. I'm here to play.
We just want to know what you're painting.
Miniatures. I'm here to paint miniatures and I'm here to roll dice. If you want to have talks about politics or these other topics, you can message me on my private Instagram that it's not hobby related and we can have those discussions. I'm here to hobby and to get away from that stuff.
Yeah, this is an escape.
This is my escape, right? And that's why when people are coming into the hobby and a newcomer, I want them to have the most fun and the best intro. I don't want them to show up and, hey, it's your first time ever playing a war game. We're going to play Horus Heresy 7 hours long, or you're going to need 5 books just to keep up with what I'm saying.
I would never open another book again.
You wouldn't be fun. You would say, what am I doing? Why am I spending hundreds of hours into this? I don't even know. What does he mean by furious assault? Where is that? I've looked through this book. Oh, he's saying it's in another book. Why do they have special rules in 2 different books?
What does AP mean?
Horus Heresy team. Why do you have special rules across 2 different books? 1 book, all special rules, 1 place. Done. You've gotten better this edition. I'll give you that. Make it even better. But I think when most people look at 40K and AOS because they're not a special design studio game, they're like the main studios. So they get a lot more money, a lot more marketing, a lot more stuff like that happening. So I can see the big push into that. But I genuinely think if somebody's starting out, if I was to give them one recommendation, I would say find a spearhead that looks cool.
100%.
Look through all the spearheads, find the box. So you're like, these guys look the best. They look amazing. Go off that. Just get that one box, build it, paint it, play that one Spearhead. Spearhead games can be so fast, so fast. Even if you play the full 4 rounds, under an hour. Full setup, like bare table, setup, play 4 rounds, break apart, armies back in the cases, bare table again. We've done it in under an hour. We've done it multiple times under an hour. So it's not like it was a fluke that we just did it once. We've played multiple games. Some nights we've had 3-4 games.
Yeah, like half an hour
After
back to
work,
back to back.
after work. Yes, the game 2, 3, and 4 are faster because the table's set up, terrain's, your armies are kind of ready, you're in the hype, you understand, blah, blah. Your first game is going to be a little slower, you're trying to get back into it, blah, blah, make sure
Yeah.
it's going well. Even that first game, what, hour 15 tops?
Yeah, if that. But that's also, yeah, because we are kind of like in a rhythm now. We know what we're doing. Like
But I'm saying with Spearhead, it's easier to get into the rhythm because there's so much less.
Yes, very true. Yeah, it didn't take
You're not
long at
worrying
all.
about manifestations, spells, terrain, artifact, warlord trait, regiment abilities,
Right.
armies of renown. Like none of that matters. It's
No,
just
you're
it's
right.
one page of your rules, maybe less, and then 2 other pages. Again, most of the time less of this is all your units. Done. 3 pages. Done. That's it. All your rules are 3 pages. All week. Perfectly fine. Doesn't cry bitch once before 12 p.m. Not once. But yeah. That's just some opinions.
Just some. Just some. No, I think you broke it down like amazingly. I think you
You have to say that.
yeah, I know.
But
yeah,
But
no.
no, seriously though, like I'm just here to discuss about like, because this is like a common topic, especially with Kimmer and you being pretty new, and you've even asked, well, why would you push someone into AOS over 40K and things like that? And it's really simple. It's like 1, less memorization, 2, less rules, earlier start base. You can buy 1 box Spearhead, buy 1 box. You can play Spearhead multiple ways. You can then, most armies have a second Spearhead. So then you can build the army you already have by adding more units to it, and now have 2 different Spearheads to pick from, which then gives you 4 regiments total to pick from, 8 enhancements to pick from, 2 army rules to pick from, for a game that will last less than an hour. So you can play 1, get that done, pick up, quickly pack it away, pull out the other models for the other one and play with the other Spearhead. You can play 2 different armies in one night for
Back
less
to
time.
back. Yeah, no, Spearhead really is amazing. Like I'm really happy that we started playing it.
No, that's how we look at armies now. Like with like you said, you want to do Fire Slayers, right? When they finally get their update, the Fire Dwarves for AOS. That's what you wanted your order army to do. What's the first thing we looked at? Hey, let's check out the Spearhead.
Yeah,
First thing we said. We didn't say, hey, let's check out their heroes. Let's check out their Warcry kill teams. First thing we said, let's check out what their Spearhead is like.
Yeah, because if I like their Spearhead, then I don't care about anything else.
Yeah, because we can play the mini game, and if you get the Spearhead, you build it, whatever. It's like, yeah, but you only bought 1 box that you can then, even if you have it as a backup army, maybe you're not into the main rules for them or whatever, or maybe they do something like they did with Night Haunt where they totally changed the army up. That's a whole different discussion for another time. So, maybe you're just not feeling the vibe of the army anymore when it gets updated or whatever, but you only bought 1 box for it.
Yeah, you didn't just spend like 3,000 points.
Yeah, it's not like you went and bought like thousands of dollars for this army and then they changed it. It's like, you spent 1 box that here costs less than 200 Canadian and you're good to go.
Yeah. No, it is perfect.
Like you're set. Like, yeah, you need the Spearhead box and stuff. Most gaming shops have multiple copies of the Spearhead boards now that they let you play for free. My local shop, like you can literally say, hey, I want to come and do a Spearhead game. They literally have the Fire and Jade and the Sand and Bone, multiple copies available to play at any time. And that's like multiple hobby stores around here do that. So if yours aren't doing that,
you might want to have a talk with them.
Yeah.
Or find a different hobby store.
Or be the one to start that. Say, hey guys, nobody does this locally. If you want to rent my Spearhead stuff, £5 for a day, and you can take my Spearhead stuff as long if it's damaged, you buy me a new one. Done. Yeah. You can literally rent out your product and make money off your hobby just by doing something simple like that. Anyways, this is just my little ramblings / Kim's little rambling about why my thoughts on AOS versus 40K. I mean, obviously as the editions change, there's going to be a very different discussion at the end of 2026 when 11th edition drops for 40K. Hopefully they change some things and go back to some things how they were. in some aspects. That's for a talk for a different time. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in and listening, and leave your comments below. What do you think? Are you into AOS? Are you into 40K? Is heresy your thing? I think, follow your heart. If heresy is your thing and you're like, this is the setting I want, screw AOS and 40K. Follow your heart.
They're all
I play
amazing
all of
game
them.
styles. They're just geared towards different
approaches.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
It's how complex do you want your game system to be?
And some people handle the complexity. I
I
don't.
I do. I'm somebody where I
Very
have
much
read the
does.
Horus Heresy, like special rules and everything else, like 1,000 times now because that's my interest. I want to know how to overlap everything. I want to know how to like structure it and all that. And that's where I find
And that
interest.
just makes my head go in circles.
Yeah. Right. So it's all preference at the end of the day, anyways. And as long as you're having fun and
What
spreading the hobby
is
love, that's all that
your
matters.
Warhammer game?
Yeah. What's your Warhammer game? Let us know. What's your main thing and what's maybe the next one you would try, you know? But yeah, thank you guys for listening and tuning in, and we'll see you guys on Monday for another Sunday review, as well as
Yes.
a little game awards talking about the reveal they had there.
Exciting,
Yeah.
exciting news.
So yeah, we'll see you guys then. Thank you for tuning in, and bye.
Bye.